Am I the a-hole for filing a report against my late husband's colleague and getting him fired? My husband, 33, passed away 3 weeks ago. He used to work for this company for 4 years. He'd known lots of people and made so many friends. For days, I kept getting texts from his colleague, Ted. I don't know him personally. I had no idea how he even got my number. When he first texted me, I texted back, "Where did you get my number?" And he replied saying he got it from my husband. At first, I felt annoyed, but then I started getting flirty texts from him. They started getting more and more inappropriate. I warned him to stop, but he sent me a D-pic one night at 3 a.m. and asked if I needed company since he knew I was lonely. I was appalled and enraged. I couldn't even sleep at night. I waited till the early morning to go to the company, straight to his boss, and filed a report against him after explaining in details about his behavior. He ended up getting fired because the other colleague said he did me and my husband wrong and disrespected his memory. He started arguing about how low what I did was, coming to his work in hopes of ruining his livelihood. He kept saying it was between him and I, and his workplace had nothing to do with it. But I told him I've known him only as my husband's colleague, and he was his colleague. He and a friend of his said that I was aiming to get him fired, and that he did nothing wrong and I could have talked it out with him instead. My mom called him a POS for doing this to my husband and me, but also said that he had a point in that I shouldn't come after his livelihood, since the guy has a kid to provide for. I felt bad about the whole thing, and now I feel like I made things worse and acted out of emotions. Now for the top comments. He got your phone number at work. He knew you were a widow because of work. He would never have targeted you if he hadn't known your husband and knew he died. So his behavior had everything to do with work. And doing this to his co-worker's widow? Of course his employer was horrified. The guy had it coming. Preying on someone's grief is so low. Not the a-hole. Exactly. Plus, she's a widow of 3 weeks. I might understand reaching out after 6 months and building a friendship. But 3 weeks and D-pics? That man deserved consequences for his horrible actions. OP, I'm so sorry for your loss and that you were harassed by this man. Please consider filing a police report if he continues. This is not okay behavior. Obviously not the a-hole. Given how quickly they fired him, I'm guessing that this was not his first case of harassing wives of coworkers. Or coworkers. As an employer, this a-hole could be employee of the century and I would still fire his butt for only this. Not the a-hole. He wasn't worried about his children's livelihood when he was harassing his coworker's widow. I have no idea where he was even coming from, sending a D-pic to a grieving widow of 3 weeks. WTF? Not the a-hole. He messed around and found out. The fact you are the widow of his late work colleague makes this absolutely a work issue. He disrespected and harassed you. If he didn't want to lose his job, all he had to do was not harass you. Literally, that's all he had to do. He wanted you to deal with him without going to his work because then he would face no consequences. He was already not listening when you said stop, and generally cops won't do anything unless it's immediately threatening. Going to his work was the only way he was going to learn. You absolutely did the right thing. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my wife my job has to come before hers? Background. Me 35 male, my wife 34 female, and our 2 kids 3 and 5 live in a very high cost of living city. I made about 5 times as much as my wife, so we do pretty well. If my income were the same as my wife's, we would not be able to afford to live in our city. My job is pretty low stress, about 35-ish hours a week with the only requirement that I be on call for 1 week out of each month. Normally nothing ever happens. So I do my usual routine with the understanding with my wife that if I am needed, I will drop whatever we are doing and work until the work issue is resolved. This only ever happens once every quarter and only lasts a few hours. My wife, on the other hand, has a much more stressful job. Her boss is incredibly demanding and often demands random and inane things, just as a power play with her subordinates. She usually works about 45 to 50 hours a week. As a result, I take care of most home stuff, drop off / pick up kids from daycare, cook meals, and generally keep the house clean. The AITA incident. It was an on-call week after work hours when my wife got a text from her boss about fulfilling an emergency request for a client. My wife complained to me that this request really could wait until tomorrow, but she would rather get it done so she doesn't have to listen to her boss gripe at her in the morning if it's not done. I had no problem with it. But I reminded her that I am on call, so I might need to switch with her if something came up. She made a grunt of acknowledgement, but nothing beyond that. About 2 hours later, I got an all-hands call to immediately come into the office. Normally, I can resolve issues remotely, but we had an issue that prevented us from remoting in. I rushed upstairs and told my wife I had to leave, only for her to turn around and say, "Sorry, but my issue came up first. You are going to have to tell your work you can't." I was taken aback and told her that no, this issue isn't something I can skip for anything short of I am physically in the hospital and can't come in. She got increasingly angry and started ranting at me. But I told her that I didn't have time for this and that I am leaving. When I get back, we can discuss this. She started crying, but I had no more time, so I left for the office. On the way, she called me to continue the argument. And in the heat of the moment, I said, "Look, I respect that you put a lot of time and energy into your work, but we cannot afford our house or lifestyle without my job. So when push comes to shove, my job has to come first. Otherwise, we are going to be on the streets." She hung up on me after that. When I got home about 3 hours later, around 11 p.m., the kids were crashed out on the living room couch with several bowls of cereal spilled around them. I went upstairs and my wife was locked in the bedroom and refused to talk. In the morning, I found out from the kids that she spent the night crying in her room and didn't feed them dinner or tuck them in, so they made cereal and had a sleepover in the living room. Not the a-hole, and her neglecting to feed your children should be a red flag. I mean, if I came to that, I would be livid. Kids shouldn't have to fend for themselves because their mom is having a meltdown. That's absolutely unacceptable. No matter what, the second I look my daughter in the eyes, I'll come down. I really can't comprehend this behavior. Maybe the kids are teenagers and I'm overreacting. If that's the case, I'm sorry, OP. But if not, your wife's got such a big red flag you could call her Xi Jinping. OP said the kids are 3 and 5, so horribly negligent and irresponsible to leave them unattended. Oh God, I assumed around 6 to 8 years old for the kids. 3 and 5 is absolutely too young to be left completely unattended and not fed. I get that she's upset, but that should not be happening. I'm not going to lie, I was prepared to give you the or the a-hole after reading the title. But no, you're absolutely not the a-hole in this situation. Her behavior with the kids was horrible. She must change her job and attitude. I have tried many times to get her to look for a new job, but won't. I think it's partially a sense of loyalty to her job and a fear of newness. Your wife needs a reality check and some serious therapy, or you need to rethink things with her. She deliberately neglected your children because she was butthurt. This definitely sounds like mental breakdown, particularly the fear of change and the crying all night. She definitely needs to get herself in therapy to fix this. Next story is titled, "Am I the a-hole for not wanting to be a stay-at-home mom and find a job instead?" My husband's father passed away recently. He grew up on a large farm in Kansas, and him and his mother inherited a farm. My husband, John, 24 male, and I, 21 female, met while he was living in New Orleans, attending Tulane on athletic scholarship, and I was working as a waitress. We fell in love and he proposed quickly. We married a few months ago, and I'm currently 3 months pregnant. We've been living in NOLA, but since his father's passing, his mother needs help with the farm, and he suggested we move there and it will be better for the child to be raised on a farm anyway. I didn't really want to do that, but I agreed as I knew how much it meant to him. When we got there, I was surprised how big and isolated the farm was. My husband and I share one car and his mother has another. I asked to take the car the other day to go to town to look for jobs, but he sat me down and told me it wouldn't be very practical for me to have a job at the moment because we only have 2 cars for 3 people, and they can't spare one for me to take for 8 hours a day, and they can't drive me to and from work when there's so much to be done on the farm. I wasn't very happy about that, but it made sense. So I looked for some jobs online, and when we were eating dinner, I started the subject again, saying that I think I will look for some work from home jobs, but I will need stable internet connection and ask if there's any way we can change providers, as it's a bit slow. He told me all work from home jobs are a scam and he doesn't want me falling into a trap, and that he needs the laptop available at all times to communicate with his customers. I was devastated, but didn't want to argue, and I understand that his work is currently supporting us all, including his mother. We had a small family gathering, and his sister and sister-in-law asked me why I didn't want to be a stay-at-home mom. I explained them everything, and they told me I should think of my family first, that all kids in this family are raised by a stay-at-home mom, and I should just go with it and everyone will be happier. I said that I would get bored, and I need a job to help supporting us, but they kept telling me that I should listen to my husband. When everyone left, John came to our bedroom and we had our first massive argument. He told me I embarrassed him in front of his family. He told me he can't believe how heartless I am being, and that I clearly don't care enough for our baby to stay home and raise him. He called me an a-hole and told me it's best if I slept in guest room for a few nights. He hasn't spoken to me since, and his mother told me I hurt him and all of them by refusing to carry on family tradition of being a stay-at-home mom, and that I am bringing shame to him, showing that he can't support his family. And I am torn. I thought I knew what I wanted, but everyone is telling me otherwise and my head is a mess. Am I really the a-hole for wanting to find a job? Is it really that wrong of me? I thought I was right, but now I am doubting myself. Now for the top comments. This is screaming isolation tactics, not stay home. And then the argument and punishment for having her own opinion on what being a stay-at-home mom would feel like specifically for her. OMG. I'd be telling him, forget the guest bedroom. I'll stay with a friend. That's the thing. She doesn't have any friends where she lives. She doesn't have any options. How would she even get to a friend? She doesn't have a car. This whole situation is just scary. He doesn't care at all about what she wants. Not stay home. Get out of that house now. You do not want to be trapped on an isolated farm in Kansas with no money of your own, no car and a baby. The longer you wait, the harder it will be to get away. Way easier to leave pregnant than with a baby. OP, they're trying to coerce you into their lifestyle. Did your husband ever discuss with you before moving what his plan was for you and your life? It sounds like you'll just be the incubator and caregiver in his eyes, as it doesn't seem like he has any respect for you as a partner or even a person. Being a stay-at-home mom is so hard. You are on 24/7, especially if you don't have a good support system. No car, limited access to computer? Ridiculous. Also, a large majority of work-from-home jobs send you the equipment you need. Laptops, monitors, printers, etc. However, I wouldn't be surprised that if you were to do that anyway while living in that house, that they would sabotage it however they could. Really consider leaving. Doing it sooner rather than later. You can get the marriage annulled. Just file right away. Don't get stuck in this hell of isolation and being told how wrong you are for wanting to just live life. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for not wanting my girlfriend to decorate my apartment? I, 29 male, have been with my girlfriend, 24 female, for 2 years now. We have not lived together before, but she's currently 18 weeks pregnant, so I suggest that she move in with me once her lease was up. It ended at the end of June, so she's been living with me for almost 3 weeks now. Well, we get along well, and overall living together has been great. I've noticed that she started to change things around my apartment. She only brought a few things over since my apartment is fully furnished, so I understand her need to make it feel more like her space. Everything in my apartment is mid-century modern. It's a mid-century modern building and I bought the apartment because of how much I love that style. Some of the things that she's suggesting or bringing into the apartment absolutely does not go with that vibe. She's taken down some of my artwork and replaced it, cleared off my shelves I curated and put her knickknacks on it, went through my pantry and cleared out things she thought were unhealthy, all without asking me. She works from home while I work in the office, so she has a lot more time at the apartment than I do. I just wish she would run things by me first. I'm an architect. She's an editor and doesn't have the same designer eye, which clearly shows. What really bothered me was that she started to throw some things away without asking. I went to take out the trash and saw that some birthday cards I kept were in there. When I asked about it, she said she was just getting rid of clutter. But her stuff is more like clutter while mine has actual sentimental value. I told her to stop touching things in the apartment. And she pointed out that she should have a say because she lives there, which I agree with, but she doesn't run anything by me. Now she's being very avoidant and passive-aggressive. So am I the a-hole? Everyone sucks here. You do realize that when you have a baby, your carefully curated apartment vibe will change very much, right? That said, she shouldn't be throwing your stuff out without asking you. Time to sit down, have an adult conversation, and come up with a compromise. Right, can't have those beautiful teak upholstered chairs because there's going to be all manner of bodily fluids, stains, and teeth marks in them. It's not even just stains and whatnot. My kid gnawed on all of our wood furniture like a demented beaver. Everyone sucks here. I would have said not the a-hole if not for the I told her to stop touching things in the apartment. She has an equal say in what your space looks like. I tried to make it feel like home for her. She's the a-hole for making changes without talking to you, and especially for throwing some of your stuff out without your consent. You guys need to have a talk and reach a compromise. Did you go out of your way to make her feel like the home is hers when she moved in? It doesn't necessarily sound like that's the case. I get that the OP sees it as his house, but that doesn't work when you are a family. You are basically asking her to conform to your reality here. There needs to be some compromise, and she's going to need some space of her own, particularly if she works from home. I'll admit, I don't really do anything other than help her move in. I've never lived with someone else before, so I'm not really sure how I could make her feel more at home. Any suggestions would be great. A good first step would be to start calling it our apartment instead of my apartment, since she lives there now too. Everyone sucks here. She should be able to help decorate the apartment, but she shouldn't throw away possibly sentimental items without asking. You also sound full of yourself. Agreed. The "shelves I carefully curated" comment made me gag. I knew someone who was this full of herself. Her kids only had all wooden toys because it fit her aesthetic.